We shall see. May the odds ever be in our favor. Since we're all talking about oligarchs, let me tell you about my oligarch, Jeff Bezos. You probably didn't know this could happen in America, but oligarchs can actually hire former prosecutors to try to put Americans in prison. My oligarch did that to my family. My husband, Carl, worked at Amazon for 8 years. Got great reviews, got promoted. He had an employment contract that Amazon wrote, Jeff's original employment contract. And in that contract, it said that while he worked at Amazon, he could carve out time to do things on his own, including start his own company and seek investors as long as they weren't investors in Amazon, do business with entities doing business with Amazon, so long as his arrangement wasn't substantially similar to Amazon's arrangement. My husband left, started his own real estate development company, and was soaring because he works on data centers, which are, good business. My husband's also very smart. Anyway, about a year later, the FBI knocks on our door and tells my husband Amazon is accusing him of a federal crime. What's the federal crime? Doing what his employment contract said he could do. Starting a company and doing business with entities that were doing business with Amazon. But my husband's like, my employment contract allows me to do that. DOJ is like, I can't hear you. What are you saying? And the reason is because the oligarch wanted my husband to go to prison. So first we learned later that the DOJ never asked Amazon to see my husband's employment contract. So they said my husband criminally violated his employment terms, but the prosecutors actually didn't ask to see the contract, which is pretty wild. I thought that was a basic function of the FBI and federal prosecutors to investigate a crime when they think one may have happened. But here, I think what happened is that the oligarch said, I need you to go after this person. And then the federal prosecutors tried to find a crime to satisfy Mr. Bezos. I don't know, maybe they don't check evidence ever. It just seems like not a thing. Maybe that's only reserved for when the oligarchs order the criminal prosecutions. Also, I can prove all of this in writing. The DOJ admitted to us later in writing that they didn't have the contract. And based on the lies about my husband, the DOJ seized all of our bank accounts. So in America, the government can take your money on the suspicion of a crime, even if they don't charge you or prove it. So the government took all of our bank accounts. We had 4 little girls who were under 6. One was a year old. And we asked if we could have money back to feed our children. And the federal prosecutor, Samantha Bateman, told my husband's lawyers that we could feed our kids and have money for groceries if he would plead guilty to the oligarch's allegations. That didn't happen. So, I feel like it's kind of qualifies as an oligarchy when a billionaire can get the government to take all of your money, have the FBI raid your home, and tell you have to plead guilty to continue to feed your children so they don't die. Feels like some oligarch shit. And then after we finally got the employment contract to the federal prosecutors, the oligarch's lawyers were like, no, we don't, it doesn't say that. It doesn't allow him to do the things the plain language says. And the DOJ was like, okay. And so all they would say to us is like, yes, we have all of your money. Yes, you've now lost your home, your retirement, your careers. That's what we want to. So could you please just plead guilty and stop bothering us? We don't think your employment contract allowed you to do that. That's what they said. We don't think the employment contract allows that. So apparently the DOJ is now in the business of interpreting Amazon.com's employment contract, the criminal lawyers. Sounds right. The other thing is this other federal prosecutor, Uzo Asonye. He told my husband's lawyers when this started, come on, man, we don't want to take this to trial. What? So you want to accuse my husband of a federal crime, take all of our assets and destroy our lives, but you're not going to go to trial? Okay. So the next thing that happened is that Amazon sued my husband for racketeering when we wouldn't plead guilty. And then finally that case went into the discovery, which is an exchange of information. And then the oligarch's lawyer, former federal prosecutor, called up his friends at the DOJ. This time he called prosecutors Matthew Burke and Jamar Walker. There were 17 prosecutors that tried to get this done for Jeff. And they called and said, we need to talk because it's time for us to turn over all of our communications between Amazon and the DOJ, and probably not a good look. And then the prosecutors were like, oh my God, you're right, we cannot do this. I'm surprised people didn't just destroy emails, but they didn't. And instead, the prosecutors arranged for a phone call with the oligarch's lawyers and all of Amazon's targets and their lawyers, including my husband. And on this phone call first, federal prosecutor Jamar Walker was like, hey, I just want to make sure no one's recording this. Someone did, don't know who. Anyway, then prosecutor Matt Burke said to my husband and the Amazon's other targets, if you don't agree to an immediate stay of Amazon's civil lawsuit, you are going to get what you deserve. The DOJ will find a way to prosecute you for witness tampering or obstruction of justice, even if we don't charge you with any underlying crime. What? And Matt Burke said we were fighting a war we could not win. Why? Because Can nobody beat the oligarch and the Department of Justice together? Very clear threats. Also super weird for the DOJ to get on a phone call and threaten targets of a criminal investigation to not defend themselves in a civil lawsuit that the DOJ is not a part of. Like, that is some real oligarch shit, right? Federal prosecutors threatening Americans not to defend themselves in civil lawsuits, or they will get what they deserve from the government. Like, are these friggin' Jeff Bezos gunmen? What? This is my life. So anyway, my husband's like, I mean, you've already destroyed my life. Go ahead. You know, he believed in the truth of his employment contract, dear God, which like a 5-year-old could read, or at least a first-year law student. And so my husband's like, nope, I'm not going to stop defending myself in the civil lawsuit that's baseless. Husband defends himself, wins the civil lawsuit, wherein the federal judge eventually says, yes, Mr. Nelson, you were authorized by your employment contract, the explicit terms of it, to do what Amazon says is a crime. Like, we didn't need to waste 4 years and all of those FBI raids and civil forfeitures and all that stuff. In the meantime, because my husband went through the civil lawsuit and defended himself, he got those communications between Amazon and the DOJ. Holy shit, you guys. The oligarch's lawyers had unprecedented access to federal prosecutors. If you know anything about the DOJ, you're supposed to, like, if you get a chance to report a crime, an independent prosecutor would take those allegations and investigate, send out subpoenas, etc. That's not what happened here. Here, the oligarch's lawyers had over 100 meetings with the prosecutors, including multiple 50-page PDF pitches of criminal theories with their evidence, including like their wrong and false interpretation of the employment contract, their code of conduct, and all this other stuff. The oligarch's lawyers, along with their business partners at IPI, wrote in emails to the prosecutors that they wanted to tell the DOJ when they should take their investigation overt. Like, private lawyers telling the FBI, we're gonna need to weigh in on when you take this investigation public. This like very scandalous employment allegation. Like, what the fuck? Amazon's lawyers told the DOJ that here is Mr. Nelson's employee direct deposit bank account information. You know, maybe good for seizure, I don't know. There are multiple emails where the oligarch's lawyers are directing the FBI to subpoena Amazon for certain information. They're like running the investigation. I mean, strong men if I've ever seen them. Feels like the things they tell me about Russia and Putin. Anyway, because we proved all of this stuff, the DOJ ultimately ended up having to vacate pleas it had obtained from alleged co-conspirators based on the lies Amazon told. Those pleas weren't in the interest of justice. So like, these 4 men were convinced to plead guilty and agree to go to prison for helping my husband allegedly violate his Amazon employment terms, when in fact, because we fought, we were able to get past the strongmen and prove that my husband's Amazon employment contract, like a plain written document that, again, a first-year law student could read, authorized him to do exactly what Amazon complained of and was no violation in a civil court, let alone sending men to prison. So like, in a move that was unprecedented in American history, the DOJ vacated 4 pleas. I mean, the oligarch tried to create a crime and got like 17 prosecutors and a bunch of FBI agents to go around the country, spend years and millions of your taxpayer dollars trying to put my husband in prison. I mean, come on. And nobody will tell you about it in the media because Mr. Bezos owns a paper where he is apparently telling them they can't endorse presidential candidates or publish cartoons that are mean to him, which is super oligarch shit. And then the other media depends on the revenue from the oligarch's company, Amazon, buying ads. Mr. Bezos decides the news you hear, the media you see, and apparently whether or not you go to prison. I just thought America should know about it. And now that we're finally talking about the oligarchy, it seems like the perfect time to share our story. It's not funny. It's like, there are days I can still barely get out of bed. I mean, what do you think? Is this a prime example of the oligarchy at play in America? I mean, are we all screwed at this point? We shall see. May the odds ever be in our favor. Since we're all talking about oligarchs, let me tell you about my oligarch.